You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
What Jack Smith wouldn't say about Kash Patel raises major red flag. Journalist, based on an article by Alexander Willis. The FBI director who needed immunity. The real story is not Smith's refusal. Jack Smith declining to discuss sealed material in a televised interview is the least interesting part of this story. The reporting gives us a far bigger fact pattern. Kash Patel was subpoenaed in the classified documents investigation, invoked the Fifth Amendment, then received immunity before answering under a sealed court order. He later became FBI director. That is not background noise. That is the center of gravity. Patel's rise is the message. The institutional power here is obvious. Trump gave Patel a job. The Justice Department granted him immunity, and the federal judiciary sealed what he said. Now Patel runs the bureau that should stand above presidential patronage. The political lesson is not that Patel is mysterious. It is that loyalty, not accountability, is what gets rewarded in this ecosystem. Patel also spent months publicly insisting he had seen Trump declassify the documents before leaving office. That claim did not remain a private legal posture. It became part of Trump's defense. A witness who aligns himself with the defendant in public, then receives immunity in secret, and later takes command of the FBI is not an ordinary official. He is evidence of how thoroughly the system can be bent without breaking in public view. Secrecy is doing two jobs. Smith's silence is being used as the headline, but the sealed material is the real institutional scandal. A judge's permanent seal keeps Patel's testimony hidden. Two watchdog groups are still fighting to release it. That tells you what kind of state this is. Not one that transparently resolves abuse, but one that buries key facts behind procedure and lets everyone pretend the burial is neutrality. This is how accountability gets managed in elite cases. The record is hidden, the public gets fragments, and the most politically connected actor in the room emerges with authority intact. The secrecy does not protect democracy. It protects the people who already know how to exploit it. This direction is the point. The reporting's framing risks making Smith look like the evasive character when the more consequential figure is Patel. Smith cited the sealed status of his report. That is not scandalous. It is the ordinary consequence of a process that was already compromised by the need to manage highly charged evidence under judicial seal. What deserves scrutiny is why Patel needed immunity before he would answer questions at all, and what that says about the testimony he gave. The public is invited to focus on the prosecutor's caution instead of the witness's conduct. That is a familiar inversion. Procedural restraint gets treated as the drama, while the underlying power move disappears into the background. Loyalty outranks law. The larger pattern is plain. Trump's orbit does not merely tolerate people who bend toward him. It elevates them. A man who once had to be compelled to speak in a federal investigation now sits atop the FBI. That is not institutional repair. It is capture with a badge on it. The democratic problem is not one dramatic breach. It is the slow normalization of officials who owe their standing to the very figures they are supposed to investigate, regulate, or contain. Once that arrangement takes hold, the state stops functioning as a referee and starts functioning as a shield. What this story really reveals. The article is useful insofar as it exposes a buried fact pattern, but its emotional center is still too polite for what is actually happening. This is not a puzzle about who said what on television. It is a story about a presidency that rewards concealment, a Justice Department that sealed the record, and an FBI now led by a man whose own role in the case required immunity and silence. That is the system speaking clearly. The powerful do not need innocence when they can secure secrecy, promotion, and time. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Raw Story for today's article, with the automated voice of LJ. Thanks for listening.